Imagine calling the city to demand they change the laws of thermodynamics just because you want to run your AC at 50 degrees in July. People actually do this. Today, we are breaking down the absolute chaos of utility company complaints. We are stripping away the entitlement and using real science to expose exactly what happens when bad logic meets heavy infrastructure. 1. A furious homeowner demanded full compensation after a falling tree branch obliterated his power line. But when the field crew arrived, they realized the guy had chopped the tree down himself, aiming it right at his own house. He then had the absolute nerve to ask the electric company to reimburse him for a broken chainsaw chain. Here is a massive reality check. The utility owns the street poles, but the drop line to your roof is your problem. Gravity is not a utility you can dispute. 2. Billing departments deal with thousands of people screaming about sudden $1,000 water bills. They swear on their lives they barely use a drop. Then a city inspector visits and finds a guest bathroom toilet that has been running non-stop for a month. A single faulty rubber flapper can silently waste up to 200 gallons of water every single day. That is like leaving a garden hose running on your lawn. The city does not issue refunds just because you ignored basic plumbing. 3. A very angry resident called their electric provider to scream about a midnight power outage. Why were they so mad? Because they just spent $30,000 on solar panels and could not understand why their house went dark. They entirely skipped the brochure, explaining that grid-tied solar panels automatically shut down during outages to prevent electrocuting the linemen repairing the wires. Also, the sun goes down at night. Science can be highly inconvenient for people who refuse to read. 4. Municipal waste management gets daily calls from people complaining that garbage trucks are waking them up at 6 in the morning. One guy actually filed a petition demanding the city only collect trash after lunch. Here is the logistical nightmare behind that genius idea. Trash trucks run early specifically to avoid morning rush hour. If they waited until noon, your 30-minute commute would transform into a 2-hour gridlock, trapped behind a massive truck smelling like hot, fermenting garbage. 5. The nationwide rollout of smart meters brought an absolute avalanche of tinfoil hat complaints. People claimed the digital meters gave them migraines, joint pain, and even bad dreams. One paranoid customer actually wrapped their new meter in layers of heavy aluminum foil to block the signals. The ironic twist? The foil blocked the connection, which caused the meter to transmit at absolute maximum power, trying to find a signal. Honestly, a smart meter emits fewer radio waves than your cell phone. 6. Customer service received a panicked call about a horrible rotten egg smell near a furnace. But the homeowner demanded the technician come next week because they were leaving for a ski trip. This is a terrifying lack of survival instinct. Natural gas is actually completely odorless. Utility companies legally inject a chemical called mercaptan into the lines, specifically so you can smell a leak before your living room turns into a crater. If you smell it, you do not check your calendar, you evacuate immediately. 7. Internet service providers catch incredible amounts of heat, and their tech support logs are legendary. One furious guy demanded a year of free service because his Wi-Fi dropped out every evening. After hours of troubleshooting, the technician discovered the router was sitting directly behind a massive stainless steel microwave. A microwave is essentially a metal cage designed to trap radiation. When you turn it on, it creates severe electromagnetic interference that instantly assassinates your Wi-Fi signal. Location actually matters. 8. City water departments constantly deal with wealthy transplants moving to the desert and complaining that the tap water leaves white crust on their expensive black espresso machines. They accuse the city of pumping toxic sludge into the pipes. What they are actually seeing is just calcium and magnesium. Cities that pull water from deep underground rock aquifers naturally have hard water. It is completely safe to drink and actually gives you essential minerals, but it will absolutely destroy your modern kitchen aesthetic. 9. One homeowner threatened to sue the city because a newly installed LED streetlight was shining into their bedroom. When Public Works offered to install a directional shield on the light, the homeowner refused, demanding the pole be completely removed from the neighborhood. Cities have extremely strict lighting codes designed to prevent car crashes and deter street crime. They are never going to plunge a four-way intersection into total darkness just because you refuse to buy $20 blackout curtains. 10. Utility linemen regularly encounter aggressive property owners who think they own the airspace above their grass. One man physically barricaded a bucket truck, screaming that the utility pole was his private property. This brings up the fascinating legal reality of an easement. When you buy a house, the utility company automatically retains the legal right-of-way to access and upgrade equipment on your land. That wooden pole is not yours, even if you planted pretty flowers around the base. 11. Every single winter, water companies are flooded with angry calls from tenants claiming the utility maliciously shut their water off without notice. A quick dispatch usually reveals the house has no heating and the copper pipes have frozen completely solid. The real villain here is basic physics. Water is one of the only substances on Earth that expands when it freezes. It generates thousands of pounds of pressure, easily bursting metal pipes. The utility company cannot just override the laws of thermodynamics. 12. During a brutal summer heat wave, a customer called their electric provider to complain that their air conditioning was not keeping their house at a crisp 65 degrees. They confidently blamed the power plant for sending weak electricity. Newsflash: grids do not supply weak electricity. The problem is your AC unit. Residential air conditioners are generally engineered to cool a house by roughly 20 degrees below the outside temperature. If it is 100 degrees outside, your system is already screaming for mercy. 13. A suburban dad rented a heavy excavator to build a backyard pond and instantly severed the main fiber optic cable for his entire zip code. Instead of apologizing for ruining the weekend, he called the utility to complain that the wires were buried too close to the surface. This is exactly why the National Call Before You Dig hotline exists. Digging blindly is incredibly reckless. Best case, you ruin movie night. Worst case, you strike a high-pressure gas main. 14. Following a massive thunderstorm that knocked out power for 3 days, a woman submitted a claim to the electric company demanding $800 for spoiled organic Wagyu steaks. She went absolutely ballistic when the claim was denied. Utility companies operate under strict tariffs approved by the government. These legal documents explicitly state that the utility is not liable for food loss caused by severe weather events. Acts of nature are an uninsurable risk, no matter how expensive your groceries are. 15. A restaurant owner furiously called the city sewer department because a foul-smelling swamp was backing up into his kitchen drains. He loudly accused the city of poorly maintaining the main lines. When Public Works popped the manhole cover outside, they found a massive blockage made entirely of congealed cooking grease. Pouring fats down the drain creates giant fatbergs that harden like literal concrete. Instead of an apology, the city handed the restaurant owner a massive fine for destroying public infrastructure. 16. Power companies actually receive calls from animal lovers demanding they remove birds from high-voltage lines because they are terrified the animals will fry. Dispatchers constantly have to explain the concept of electrical potential. A bird does not get shocked because it is not touching the ground or a second wire simultaneously. Electricity always wants the path of least resistance to the earth. Since the bird does not offer a path to the ground, the fatal current safely ignores it. 17. A deeply confused caller demanded that their home only receive electricity generated from clean wind turbines and complained that the dirty electrons from a nearby coal plant were making their lights flicker. That is fundamentally not how the electrical grid works. You cannot route specific organic electrons to specific houses. The grid is essentially a giant swimming pool where all power plants dump water in at the same time. When you turn on a light, you get the exact same mix everyone else gets. 18. Forestry crews hired by power companies face insane levels of hostility. One homeowner threatened a crew with a baseball bat for aggressively pruning an oak tree near a transmission line. While aggressive trimming looks ugly, it is a critical safety protocol. High-voltage lines do not even need to touch a branch to start a fire. They can arc electricity straight through the air, instantly igniting the tree. Proper clearance zones are the only defense against catastrophic, grid-collapsing wildfires. 19. A guy whose power was disconnected for not paying his bills decided to play electrician. He bypassed the security lock on his meter and reconnected the service himself. When the power mysteriously shut off again 10 minutes later, he boldly called customer service to complain about a faulty connection. Modern utilities use advanced smart meters. The exact second you tamper with the device, it alerts the control room. They shut him down remotely and dispatch the police for theft of services. 20. Water utility billing departments regularly have to talk down panicked customers who simply misread their own meters. A woman called in hyperventilating because she thought she used 74,000 gallons of water in just 3 weeks. She was reading the decimal wrong. Most municipal water systems measure your usage in hundreds of cubic feet, rather than individual gallons. It requires a little bit of conversion math, but it turned out she actually had a perfectly average, boring water bill. 21. A customer demanded a full energy audit, convinced their electric meter was spinning wildly out of control and overcharging them while they were out of the house. The technician found 0 wiring issues, but discovered a living room packed with smart TVs, 3 gaming consoles, and ancient cable boxes left plugged in. This is known as a vampire load. Modern electronics continuously draw power on standby mode to receive network updates. Over a year, this passive drain can easily cost you hundreds of dollars. 22. Homeowner associations are notoriously strict, and one HOA president actually called the city demanding they scrub off the bright orange and yellow spray paint lines left on the street by utility locators. She claimed it ruined the neighborhood aesthetic. Those colors are not random graffiti, they are a strict universal safety standard. Yellow means explosive gas, orange is telecom, and blue is water. Erasing those temporary markings is a federal safety violation that actively endangers the lives of construction crews. 23. A tenant angrily complained to the gas company that their winter heating bill was astronomical, blaming a rigged gas meter. The inspector arrived to find the home thermostat installed on a wall directly across from a poorly insulated, drafty front door. Every time the door opened, a blast of freezing winter air hit the sensor, triggering the furnace to run continuously, even though the bedrooms were sweltering. Sometimes the problem is not a broken utility system. It is just terribly planned architecture. 24. A resident living in a house built back in the 1950s called the electric company to complain that their breakers tripped every time they ran the air fryer and a hairdryer at the same time. They demanded the grid deliver more power to their street. The utility delivers plenty of power. The bottleneck is the house itself. Older homes were built with small 60-amp electrical panels, which simply cannot handle the massive electrical demands of modern living. 25. Every spring, water utility switchboards absolutely light up with complaints about tap water, turning a disturbing shade of rusty brown. People instantly panic and assume the city pipes have collapsed. In reality, this usually happens because the local fire department is conducting routine hydrant flushing. Opening the hydrants at full blast stirs up harmless iron sediments that naturally settle at the bottom of the water mains. It looks terrifying, but simply running your cold water for 10 minutes clears the lines entirely. 26. A furious resident demanded the city pay for totally replacing their flooded basement floors, blaming a municipal sewer backup. When crews investigated, they pulled hundreds of tightly woven wet wipes out of the home lateral line. The packaging might legally say flushable, but plumbers universally call them job security. Wipes do not dissolve in water like toilet paper. They twist together into indestructible ropes that will absolutely destroy your plumbing and your bank account. 27. Following a major storm, a homeowner threatened to sue the electric company because his expensive portable generator exploded. Turns out, he tried to power his house by plugging the generator directly into a standard wall outlet. This illegal move is called backfeeding. It sends unregulated high voltage backward into the power grid, which can literally kill the lineman trying to fix the wires. The utility grid sensed the rogue power and fried his equipment to protect the workers. 28. A woman called Public Works to complain that her toilets were barely flushing, blaming low city water pressure. A plumber eventually discovered she had been flushing cheap clay cat litter down the drain for months. Here is a chemistry lesson nobody should need. Clay litter is specifically engineered to expand and absorb moisture. When you flush it, it turns into literal underwater cement. The city water pressure was perfectly fine. Her pipes were just entirely petrified. 29. A very angry customer demanded the utility company buy them a new car after a massive tree branch crushed their driveway. The kicker? Just 1 year earlier, that same customer aggressively denied the utility access to their property to trim that exact same tree. You simply cannot refuse professional vegetation management and then demand a payout when gravity and rot inevitably take their toll. You wanted to hug the tree, so now you get to pay for it. 30. A teenager's parents were screaming at the billing department over a $2,000 monthly electric bill, fully convinced their meter was hacked. The technician found the meter was perfectly accurate. The actual culprit was the son, who had quietly set up a massive crypto mining rig in his bedroom closet. Those specialized computers pull maximum electrical load 24 hours a day while generating massive heat. Digital money requires very real, very expensive physical electricity. 31. A resident was absolutely irate that the automated garbage truck skipped their house, leaving their trash bin on the curb. They called the city demanding the driver be fired. The driver skipped the house because the resident had somehow stuffed an entire leather recliner into the plastic bin. Automated robotic arms on garbage trucks have strict weight limits. If they try to lift a 300-pound sofa, the mechanical arm will literally snap in half. 32. A neighborhood association president proudly painted their gas meter to perfectly match the beige siding of their house. They completely painted over the small metal vent hole on the pressure regulator. The gas company immediately shut off their service. That little vent is a critical safety release. If gas pressure spikes, it needs a place to escape. Sealing it shut with 2 coats of exterior latex paint essentially turns your house into a ticking bomb. 33. A customer called the water department to dispute a massive summer bill, swearing they only run their lawn sprinklers for a few minutes a day. The smart meter data showed the sprinklers were running for 3 hours every single morning, even during torrential thunderstorms. Automatic irrigation systems without rain sensors are the #1 cause of high residential water bills. Watering your grass while it is actively raining is just setting money on fire. 34. A restaurant manager called the gas company demanding a massive refund, claiming he was being sold fake, watered-down natural gas. His proof? The flames on his new commercial stoves were burning bright blue instead of a traditional campfire orange. The dispatcher had to give a quick lesson in combustion physics. A yellow flame actually means incomplete combustion and deadly carbon monoxide. A crisp blue flame means the gas is burning at absolute peak efficiency. He was literally complaining about perfection. 35. Believe it or not, customer service reps regularly get angry calls from people demanding to know why the city shut off their hot water. They have to gently explain that the city only provides cold water. Your municipality does not have a giant underground boiling cauldron. If your hot water is missing, the problem is your personal water heater in your garage, not the massive concrete pipes running beneath the street. 36. A frantic man called the gas company saying he smelled a leak and demanded a technician hurry up because he was using a lighter to search for it. Dispatchers will literally scream at you through the phone if you say this. Searching for a combustible gas leak with an open flame is like looking for a landmine with a hammer. You do not investigate, you drop everything, run outside, and wait for the fire department. 37. A woman viciously complained that her internet provider was scamming her with slow speeds. She was paying for the absolute lowest tier 10 megabit plan from a decade ago, but had 3 teenagers simultaneously streaming movies in ultra-high definition. Internet bandwidth is exactly like plumbing. You simply cannot shove a fire hose volume of water through a tiny plastic drinking straw. If you want a modern digital lifestyle, you have to pay for a modern pipeline. 38. A wealthy homeowner demanded the city immediately bury all the overhead power lines on their street because the wooden poles were ruining their ocean view. They assumed it was a simple weekend project. Retroactively burying established power lines costs an average of $1 to $3 million per mile. It requires tearing up every single road, driveway, and sidewalk in the neighborhood. Your personal aesthetic preferences do not dictate the city infrastructure budget. 39. A deeply paranoid resident put a heavy steel padlock on his water meter box so the government could not spy on his water usage. He was furious when his next bill was estimated at the absolute highest usage tier. Tampering with or locking out utility workers from accessing city property is illegal. If they cannot read your meter, they will legally charge you an astronomical estimated rate until you remove the lock and let them do their job. 40. Right in the middle of a Category 4 hurricane, a guy called the power company screaming that his lights were out and demanded a bucket truck instantly. The customer service rep had to explain that bucket trucks are basically giant sails. They cannot operate in wind speeds exceeding 35 miles per hour, or they will literally blow over and crush the operator. Nobody is risking their life for your television time during a natural disaster. 41. A homeowner complained that the trash collectors were incredibly lazy for refusing to empty her bins. She had filled both bins entirely to the top with wet topsoil and heavy chunks of broken concrete. Standard residential trash bins have a strict weight limit of around 200 pounds. Wet dirt is ridiculously dense. If the truck tries to lift a bin filled with rocks, the plastic bin will explode and shatter everywhere. 42. A guy called the electric company furious that his monthly bill had practically doubled. He accused them of secretly raising rates just to punish him. During the call, he casually mentioned he just bought an electric truck and charged it in his garage every night. You are literally fueling a massive vehicle with your house electricity. It is significantly cheaper than buying gasoline, but it takes an enormous amount of power. Math is undefeated. 43. A resident complained that the street storm drain was backing up and flooding his pristine front yard. Public Works arrived to find he had covered the ugly metal drain grate with a custom-cut piece of fake AstroTurf so it would blend in with his grass. Storm drains exist entirely to catch flowing rainwater. If you cover the hole with a plastic rug, the water has absolutely nowhere to go except straight into your living room. 44. A customer whose natural gas was shut off for non-payment called to brag that he was going to turn it back on himself with a pipe wrench. The dispatcher immediately sent the police. Turning a gas meter on yourself is incredibly dangerous. If any pilot lights inside the house are out, turning the main valve floods the house with raw gas. When the furnace finally sparks, the entire structure can level the neighborhood. 45. A very wealthy guy complained to the city that his shower pressure was incredibly weak, assuming they were restricting his flow. A plumber found the issue. The man had installed a luxury shower tower featuring 8 massive shower heads. Standard residential water lines use 3/4-inch pipes. You simply cannot supply the sheer volume of Niagara Falls through a pipe the size of your thumb. You need commercial-grade plumbing for a car wash shower. 46. A customer furiously complained their internet went down for no reason. When the technician arrived, they noticed the glowing yellow fiber optic cable was snipped clean in half. The homeowner admitted they cut it with kitchen scissors because the wire sticking out of the wall looked messy. That tiny yellow cable is literally made of glass and lasers. You just destroyed your high-speed connection because you could not handle looking at a wire. 47. A guy living near a major transmission line called the electric company complaining about a faint humming noise. He demanded they install noise-canceling technology on the power poles. That hum is called corona discharge. It is the physical, audible sound of high-voltage alternating current ionizing the air around the wires. It is a fundamental law of physics. The utility company cannot simply press a mute button on the laws of the universe. 48. A homeowner decided to expand their driveway and poured thick concrete straight over the city water meter box. When a leak happened months later, they were completely outraged that city workers showed up with jackhammers and destroyed their new driveway to reach the shutoff valve. The city owns that meter, and they have an absolute legal right to access it during an emergency, even if it ruins your expensive new landscaping project. 49. A woman called the gas company absolutely irate over a massive bill in the dead of July, claiming she had not even turned her furnace on. The technician looked in her backyard and saw a giant heated swimming pool steaming in the summer sun. She was keeping the pool heated to 90 degrees around the clock. Heating thousands of gallons of outdoor water requires an absurd amount of natural gas, regardless of the season. 50. A neighborhood resident angrily complained that the local garbage truck completely destroyed the grass on the edge of their yard. When the supervisor reviewed the truck dash camera, they saw the homeowner had parked 4 massive SUVs on the street, entirely blocking the trash bins. The driver had to maneuver a 30-ton truck over the curb just to reach the trash. If you block the road, Your lawn becomes collateral damage. 51. A guy who just installed solar panels demanded the city immediately cut down a century-old oak tree in the local park because it cast a shadow on his roof at 4 in the afternoon. He claimed the city was stealing his personal solar yields. Cities value mature canopy trees for air quality, shade, and property values. They are never going to destroy a massive, healthy piece of nature just so you can save 4 cents a day. 52. A furious homeowner petitioned the city for years to bury the ugly overhead power lines on their street. The city finally agreed and spent millions doing it. The very next day, the exact same homeowner called to threaten a lawsuit because the utility installed a large green transformer box on the edge of their front lawn. You cannot have invisible electricity. If the high-voltage wires go underground, the massive equipment regulating that voltage has to sit above ground. You literally asked for this. 53. A homeowner discovered a massive muddy swamp forming in his front yard and demanded the water company rush out to fix their broken pipe. The crew arrived, checked the meter, and found the leak was running toward the house. The homeowner got furious when they told him to call a private plumber. The water meter is the exact dividing line of ownership. Anything on the street side is theirs. Anything on your grass is your financial nightmare. 54. An angry woman demanded the local utility company move a large wooden power pole out of her backyard so she could build a larger wooden deck. She thought it was a simple free service. Relocating a primary utility pole can easily cost upwards of $15,000, requires massive engineering studies, and forces power outages for the entire block. They are absolutely not moving critical public infrastructure just so you have more room for a barbecue grill. 55. A customer confidently claimed a power surge destroyed their expensive gaming laptop and demanded the utility buy them a new one. The investigation revealed the laptop was plugged directly into the wall during a massive lightning storm. The grid did not surge, the sky did. Utility companies are completely protected against acts of nature. This is exactly why surge protectors were invented. If you plug expensive gear directly into the wall, you're playing digital roulette. 56. A guy called a repairman complaining that his furnace kept shutting off randomly. He blamed the gas company for low pressure. The real issue: he installed a fancy smart thermostat himself, but failed to connect the common wire. The thermostat was desperately stealing tiny sips of power from the furnace just to keep its own screen turned on, which constantly short-circuited the heating cycle. Smart home devices require smart installation. 57. A woman complained to the city that her tap water tasted like toxic chemicals. The city tested the main lines and found nothing. The inspector finally noticed she had connected a cheap, bright green garden hose to her kitchen sink to fill a fish tank, and she was drinking out of it. Standard garden hoses are made with cheap plastics that leach heavy metals and chemicals into the water. Always use food-grade hoses if you plan on drinking it. 58. A neighborhood association actually filed a formal complaint because dirty utility repair trucks were parked on their pristine street, ruining the upscale aesthetic. The trucks were literally there to replace a blown transformer that had knocked out power to the entire subdivision. You have two choices. You can either look at a large utility truck for a few hours, or you can eat cold soup in the dark for a week. 59. A guy decided to drain floodwater from his backyard by opening the white PVC sewer cleanout pipe on his lawn. He got absolutely furious when raw sewage started backing up into his downstairs bathtubs. Here is the disgusting reality. You just introduced thousands of gallons of pressurized stormwater into a closed sanitary sewer system. The water has to go somewhere, and the path of least resistance is straight up through your own bathroom drains. 60. A customer smelled a strong, natural gas odor near the street and called the utility company, but strictly demanded they arrive quietly without sirens so they would not wake a sleeping baby. Safety dispatchers do not care about your nap schedule. An outdoor gas leak means the fire department is coming in hot. Preventing a neighborhood leveling explosion takes absolute priority over your child's afternoon rest time. 61. A homeowner furiously called the electric company because a massive wooden utility pole in his front yard was suddenly leaning at a terrifying 45-degree angle. When the emergency crew arrived, the guy casually admitted he had used an angle grinder to cut the thick steel wire anchoring the pole to the ground. He claimed the wire was annoying to mow around. That is called a guy wire. It holds thousands of pounds of tension. You just destabilize the neighborhood grid for your lawnmower. 62. A guy complained to the city that the streetlight outside his house was entirely too dim and making him feel unsafe. When the repair crew arrived, they realized he was the same guy who had previously shot the glass with a pellet gun because it was too bright. Public Works keeps incredibly detailed records of street property damage. If you destroy public property, do not be surprised when your complaints get pushed to the bottom of the pile. 63. A woman demanded the water company replace her hot water heater after it violently exploded in her basement. She claimed the city water pressure spiked. The truth was, she had intentionally capped off the temperature and pressure relief valve because it kept dripping on her floor. That specific valve is the only thing stopping your water heater from turning into a highly pressurized steam missile. She basically built a bomb to save a puddle. 64. A customer was incredibly angry that their monthly utility bill kept getting mailed to a completely wrong address, resulting in late fees. When customer service checked the online portal, they saw the customer had misspelled their own street name during the initial account creation. Automated billing systems are not mind readers. They print exactly what you type into the keyboard. You cannot blame a massive corporation for your own terrible spelling. 65. A resident complained that utility tree trimmers left a pile of wood chips in the corner of their yard and demanded they come back to sweep the grass. The utility's only job is electrical line clearance to prevent wildfires and power outages. They are highly skilled arborists focused on high-voltage safety, not a boutique landscaping service there to make your garden look pretty for a summer party. 66. A guy called the electric company furious that his winter electric bill was sky-high, swearing his meter was broken. An inspector arrived and found his neighbor had quietly run a heavy-duty extension cord under a fence and plugged a massive space heater into the guy's outdoor outlet. The utility correctly measures whatever electricity passes through your meter. Neighborly theft is not a grid issue. It is a reason to call the police. 67. A customer called the city complaining that the street sewer smelled like rotten eggs and was making their house stink. A plumber eventually figured out they had a guest bathroom they had not used in 2 years. The water in the toilet and sink drain traps had completely evaporated, creating a direct open pipe for underground sewer gas to vent directly into the living room. Just turn your faucets on once a month, people. 68. During a brutal winter storm, a man dragged a propane gas grill into his living room to cook dinner. He later called the gas company complaining about feeling extremely dizzy and nauseous, blaming a leak from his furnace. Outdoor grills lack any indoor ventilation. He was actively poisoning his entire family with lethal carbon monoxide. You cannot outsmart basic chemistry just because you really want a charred hot dog. 69. A wealthy woman was absolutely furious when she received a water bill for exactly $0. She aggressively assumed the city was ignoring her account. She had actually been living at her summer home in another state for 6 straight months, and all her home water valves were shut off. The billing representative had to politely explain the concept of zero consumption. If you do not use any water, you do not get charged any money. 70. A guy called his electric provider complaining that his living room lights flickered constantly, blaming a dirty power grid. The technician found he had installed incredibly cheap, unbranded smart switches bought online that were completely incompatible with his LED bulbs. Modern lighting electronics require highly specific voltage regulation to function properly. If you buy the absolute cheapest wiring from unknown overseas sellers, your house is going to look like a haunted disco. We just watched 70 people lose a fight against reality. Now, I need a ruthless judgment call in the comments. If you were the dictator of a utility company, which specific customer from this list gets their electricity permanently cut off forever? Defend your choice. Then hit subscribe and drop a like so we can keep exposing the chaos behind the industries you trust.